All right, Morty.
Oh my God.
Commentary. It's commentary time. I'm Justin Roiland.
I'm Dan Harmon.
Dominic Polcino.
And Mike McMahan, writer-producer.
Dominic was the director of this episode.
Dominic Polcino.
Yum, come and get your Polcinos.
Is that offensive?
Not to me, just Italians.
Oh,
Okay.
shoot. Sorry. Sorry.
Look what's happening here. It's some sort of Atlantis episode.
Oh, my goodness. We're about to go on an Atlantis adventure.
I recall spending no less than 7 days on this cold open, much to the anger of a lot of people at the office.
I remember
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But it was worth it. Cold opens are fucking hard, man. Especially something like this. It got to be tight.
Yeah.
Monkey's fist.
Yeah.
Like, you can't. You're expositing meta shit and narrative shit. And, like, it needed to come to a. And you're setting up this whole thing. Like, you want to laugh when that happens. The title comes up.
Yeah.
The other thing that was important was Joel Walsh. This needle drop. We got it. We had to have it. But yeah.
I'm so glad we didn't do the regular title sequence for this.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Elder put together some really great alternatives for the music here, but just. Like I knew we just needed this Joe Walsh song. It's like it just psychologically sets the audience in this place of like, oh shit, whoa, this is like a big deal. This it feels expensive. It feels.
Look at that rich Rick.
I don't know. It
had to feel like a movie, and it had to feel like a movie you were being forced to watch.
Yeah.
The tough thing is that we're doing two different things here, because then we go into the RoboCop style opening, which would be its own thing. But
yeah,
whatever. Dominic,
it all works because we got to speed through this shit.
Is there like a backstory to these guys having different scars?
I think it's just because their numbers are close, so each one is progressively more scarred the deeper
just,
number you
it's a
get.
clone that's not.
It's just
not clones.
Not a clone.
different timelines.
Different timelines, and you know they all probably experienced a similar event that all three of them acted slightly differently, causing various extremities to those scars.
This is Jeff Davis doing. I think it's legal to say he's doing a Sam Elliott type of voice. And it's our first canonical reference to the central finite curve that actually has like kind of canonical significance.
Yeah. Which is something we talk about a lot when we're writing episodes that involve multiversal stuff. That's our reference for the area in the multiverse that Rick has at least some experience with.
Yeah.
Which I'm being careful not to go too deep into it.
So let's get to the nitty gritty. Ridley and/or Guterman. I don't know who first came up. Was it them as a team? Like, started talking about like this idea of the Citadel episode, like, and really like specifically it genre wise as being like Summer of Sam, like. Any of these movies where the city itself is the star of the movie, the period in time. Do the Right Thing was referenced, and Summer of Sam, curiously both. Aren't those both Spike Lee movies? Or
I don't know. I think so, and just any of those sort of, you know, I think of Magnolia. You know, it's like you're jumping around between all of these different people's lives and stories, and they're somewhat connected.
Love Actually,
Robert Altman's Shortcuts came up a little bit. I mean, I'm not a fan of any of these things, but I'm not a fan of anything. I think it's so interesting, the idea of that's a genre where you go like, oh, this city is undergoing something, and let's check in with all these stories. The hugest hurdle I had to get over that Ridley and Guterman were selling me on, and they could see it, they could visualize the episode, and I was just like, I kept pushing back and going like, yeah, but are we masturbating, or is this going to be funny?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, what's the joke? And they kept explaining and kept giving me details, and then I remember just coming around to the conclusion. I was like, so in other words, the joke is that we're going to nail it. Like, that's going to be the only joke. is that it's going to be good. And if it's not funny, and it's not good, and it's a disaster. It's a masturbatory disaster.
Yeah.
And so we plunged across this threshold going like, we really gotta do this. Didn't we?
It turned out to be very dramatic, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean,
all that added up. By the end of it, you kind of feel for each storyline, and the way we approached it visually was totally different movies. Like I gave the storyboards to different artists. Like Rocket did all the Rocket Eckers did all this stuff, which is sort of Stand By Me stuff, and we researched those styles. Whoever got the different type of genre.
And what is like germane to a Stand By Me style as opposed to like these other stories? Like what did people who went off and did that research kind of come back with?
Oh man,
I put you on the spot.
It
was an unintentional gotcha question.
No, I don't know.
I think
that
has to do with staging, right? Like staging, and there's
something about the staging of like a kid's story that's more has more simplicity, maybe more centrally composted. Sorry, I'm something in my throat.
Well, yeah, all the stories do look very different.
I went to art school, not talking school.
Like this obviously looks different from the factory. Looks different from the school.
This is obviously like from design and everything.
Is like The Wire.
This feels,
camera moves, overlap. More depth in the depth. That's a depth of field. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's more of a David Fincher sort of approach.
And keeping these stories really separate was important too for when we weave them together at the end, because the other version of this episode that I think we moved away from at the very beginning was like the 21 short stories about the Citadel kind of vibe.
Oh
Right.
I was worried about doing something like that just because even with this there was so much to ground to cover.
Well, this is so much more interesting too than just little standalone like check in on a Morty owning a store and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people would probably be surprised to hear, because we're talking like this, that I don't think that the tie-in to the Evil Morty canon happened until somewhat in the middle of the development of this episode.
Yeah.
I think that was a thing that we kept on ice, that we knew we weren't making it. We certainly did not, under any circumstances, go, let's
do the Evil Morty episode.
Pay off the Evil Morty thing at all. And
no way.
It was definitely like, when it comes to stuff like that, we go like, let's do it if it feels right and feels natural. But I do think that's a linchpin of this episode.
Oh, absolutely. It would have been crazy. There's so much good Morty in this episode to not utilize that. We would have.
Well, because you begin with a joke, and the joke is that it's not connected to the canon. So if you end with the non-joke that it's not connected to the canon, to me, that is what puts you at risk of masturbation.
Yeah.
And it's okay to masturbate. It's healthy, kids. But it's way healthier to masturbate while spinning a plate and charging tickets to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because one satisfies a lot of people.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I remember like thinking about. I don't know if we had talked about it as a group, but like even after season 1, when we established the Citadel, the idea of going back to that place and doing some crazy story there was always sort of in the back of our heads. We did it in the first episode of season 3. You know, obviously
we touched back.
We touched back in there for a little bit, but yeah, like just doing a story that. I don't know. Like I was imagining. Like I remember,
but we actively destroyed it. And I will say, for those who here's where the sausage really gets made. There was a version of 301, the premiere, where there is a little hint that, in spite of Rick having made up that origin story, that there was an actual link suggesting that the Citadel was being run by the Rick that visits him in the garage scene.
Yeah, there used to be a visual connection between them.
And instead we did this, which is moving forward and saying, don't worry about the past of the Citadel, don't worry about that. Like, let's say that on this timeline the Citadel has, it's its own story, but the joke is on Rick in the end when Rick is saying you don't need to pay attention to certain shit.
Yeah.
I love that we did it after destroying the Citadel, that we then come back to it. Because it seems like we covered everything we wanted in the Citadel, and then 6 episodes later, this episode happens.
And in fact, because the Citadel is destroyed, you actually get to do the more fun shit. Like the idea that the Mortys are... That it's sort of like... I kept referencing... like South Africa post apartheid, where it's like on one hand you have this age of new hope, but then socioeconomically you have all these challenges. You have the reality of like, oh, everything's over, the history of oppression's over, and now you have like this fucking crazy District 9 shit happening. Dominic, why'd you draw those peanuts that way?
That's my specialty. I was actually wondering, like, this sequence, this story is like based on like what we used was like political thrillers of the 70s. Mm-hmm. But the guy in the cookie factory, I forget what genre we were trying to.
I think that was. Well, I mean, we had talked about Falling Down,
Dog Day Afternoon, Cadillac Man, nothing really visually, but just narratively.
Exactly. So cinematically, I think we just sort of winged it.
A guy who's
very sci-fi area.
Had too much working blue collar.
This is obviously Ridley and Guterman wrote this thing, so it's almost redundant to say, oh, this is a real Ridley thing, but then there's all these spikes where I'm like, that's so Ridley. This scene that opens up with them going like, shit, grandson, you these guys, like, that's why this thing's a masterpiece, is because that's something that Ridley, like, has always been really good at, is like flawless genre homage. Like if he hooks into a thing that he wants to evoke, he's like able to like construct it in a way that like really brings you so much joy. And I don't there's no way that this episode could have been pulled off if you didn't have Ridley and Guterman like caring enough about it. This would be an episode where we might have given up on. We can't do this.
They wrote so many characters in this. How many did you end up doing, Justin? Is there a count on this?
I mean,
and they're all very distinct, too.
All of them. I mean, we re-recorded this episode so many times that, because like the first record, I really leaned into trying to make all 4 of these kids sound different, in some minor way, like I was doing like with Chubby Morty, or what does he think he is? I thought I was what's the joke? I thought I was left-handed Morty. But like with Chubby Morty, I was like choking myself, like oh jeez, oh man, you guys, it's very subtle, but it was like different.
And then we ended up rewriting this whole scene in the edit bay. In the end, it becomes about timing and rhythm and stuff. And we're just like, we got to get through this.
It just needed more jokes. I think that the noble pursuit of doing something that was really, grounded and sort of dramatic and stuff is all good and well. But when color came back and we're looking at it, we're like, it's a cartoon with all of these cartoon characters, and it needs jokes. Like it was like we need to add as many jokes as we can.
Well, I think you guys did it. When this episode came out, universally people said this is their favorite episode of the series. And I don't think you get to that unless it's equal parts really true to the sci-fi and really true to the storytelling, really true to the genre, but then has Rick and Morty stuff like every character is only Rick and Morty. Like, Dom, when you guys were working on this, was it hard, or was it kind of cool that every single character had to be either a Rick or a Morty?
The designs were okay for them, but the other part was the inventing the Citadel. I thought it was actually pretty difficult. Like this, everything was a new scene and new location.
It's massive too. That Citadel is fucking huge, and there's so many different areas to it.
It's kind of
so it wasn't like hooray, we get to reuse a bunch of background.
No.
Yeah, nothing's taking place in a house. Or
No.
Well, usually we go in space, but usually that's all I have to do is draw space, which is not that difficult.
Now, a lot of people, I'm sure you don't want to admit this, but tell the truth. You take a white pen and you make a bunch of dots on a black piece of paper, right?
That's a time saver.
That's how you
Thank
draw
you.
space.
Thanks for the tip.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, like, it's about time you admitted it.
I like Big Morty.
His little mustache.
I definitely did something special for Big Morty. I don't I don't know, as like just man.
But just the concept of Big Morty seems like such a solid Ridley.
Yeah.
It's like, he's a Jewish. He's like Hyman Roth, or and like he's a Jewish gangster.
Do you remember the creepy Morty? Oh, right. Do you remember the creepy Morty was in 301 for a while?
Yep.
Summer and Morty
Yep.
were escaping, and then
and I was promised, don't worry, we'll put it in another episode, and
look, here it is.
and here it is.
But we didn't get my favorite joke was Summer dressing up
Yes, as a Morty.
Jerry.
Oh, there's a
No,
whole
as a Morty.
scene where it's,
No, she doesn't. She cut her like.
No, she cuts her hair off, and there's a joke where they're like, "Oh my God, you look just like Dad."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh God," but no, she's wearing a yellow shirt.
Right.
She's supposed to be disguising herself as Morty.
But as soon as she cuts her ponytail off, she realizes she
Jerry.
looks like
Oh my God, I'm Jerry with a
I
fat.
fucking love that. It was so great. We'll do it at some point.
And you got your
that
creepy
will.
Morty, but you never got your Mortyfeld. Where's
I know.
Mortyfeld?
I don't. By the time we ever get around to doing that, it's going to be so forced and just sad. and our audience won't know what we're talking about because fucking we're
You mean it'll
old.
have to be like This Is Morty?
It'll be like doing a Wings joke.
What's Wings?
Exactly.
it's Seinfeld on an airstrip.
And a
Oh my God,
small airport.
sold.
Harmon, you rewrote that line. It was perfect. It was like when he gets blended. I had something else that was not working.
Speaking of perfect, look at this guy.
I know. Look at it.
Well, I love that
He's
if you
too
get rich
good.
enough as a Rick,
You become-
you become a third. I'm Rick D. Sanchez
Yeah,
the third.
and also, just, like he runs a wafer factory dressed like Wally Wonka.
Willy Wonka.
Sorry,
Wally Winka.
Wally Wonka. Wally Wonty.
All rights
The
reserved.
big question is this whole time, right? This guy's thinking, let's get him out of here and turn him into a flavor. Right?
Yeah, that's how he
It's
got
so
to where he
good.
It's
is.
not like he changes his mind.
No,
like he's got a
no,
gun in his
he's-
pocket.
He's giving him a fucking huge like endorphin rush.
This whole thing's definitely a Black Mirror episode.
Oh yeah, it's fucking great.
Oh, this sucker. And we see that guy, the guy who just got shot, he's the one we see on the train in the opening looking out the window at the
Yeah.
rich
Yeah,
Rick.
yeah, of
So
course.
good.
And he's on his way to a meeting at the White House.
The guy said, "I'm more Rick than any of you."
Yeah.
Is the main Rick more Rick,
Yeah.
or is he just because we know
Our
him
Rick.
the best?
The Rickest Rick?
The Rickest Rick?
I think if
he
you
is.
swap out the word Rick for human, like we've all felt that way. You know, you're in line at the bank and you're like, this is fucking insane. I am the only human here. You're all monkeys or computers. But I think it is true. I think Rick, what the Citadel Ricks call rogue Ricks, are actually authentic Ricks.
Yeah, those are the ones those are the formidable ones.
Because there's no way
they don't get along.
a Rick would. It's like having a citadel of anarchists. Like it's like,
Right.
well, guess who the real anarchists are? The ones who didn't show up for the meeting.
yeah, the ones that said "fuck you," I'm gonna go do my own thing. I have a goddamn portal gun.
Without that panini maker, this fat Morty's going to become real thin if he stops eating quite as many paninis all the time.
No, but that panini maker is gonna provide him with a bunch of sandwiches.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe he wants to be thin instead of eat sandwiches.
Did we play this dry? Is there music here?
There's a little music, yeah.
I remember
little bit.
I remember pulling back on the music quite a bit. Still a good
There's a version of the tag where you find out what's on the other side of that portal, and it's a universe that clearly like complained to a Rick about not leaving a tip or something.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
And then he makes it a perpetual.
I remember a
garbage
few.
dump.
I remember a few different tags.
Like you check back in on Slick, and he actually does live because he's only landing on a garbage pile on a planet that fucked over a Rick once, and that's why they dump all their shit.
I don't
there.
remember that one, man. What the fuck?
Well,
I remember a few like tags in that dump planet that were sort of like in that area. But
I love this last scene is amazing. The music, the callback music,
blonde
the
redhead.
unfurling of the flag with the new designs, and all of that stuff was.
I wonder if blonde redhead knows about our show.
I mean, they have to,
You
right?
think?
Yes.
It's hard for me to wrap my head
Look
around.
at this group of ruling Ricks.
I know, it's so fucking great.
I love that one of them is Garment District Rick.
Is that you can almost figure out
That's
what
the
each
Dubai
one's
Rick.
from.
Well, why would there be a chic Rick?
He runs like the touristy Dubai area of the Citadel.
Mirror already has the new logo on it.
Yeah, no, he's not wasting any time.
Definitely, absolutely 100% Game of Thrones
Yeah,
inspired all of this, but kind of fusing it with The Wire and
cold, calculated speech with sinister.
this was one of the last pickups I did.
I was obsessed with the idea of just want all these stories to change. Like, okay, the cop that was a renegade cop is the new definition of a hero. Why? Because he puts order above chaos at all costs. I like your definition of a good guy yesterday can become your definition of a cog in the machine tomorrow when you are in the midst of a fascist coup. And we wrote this episode before we were in the midst of a fascist coup.
Oh
Good night.
yeah, remember that?
Yeah,
Wasn't that nice?
Oh, I hope the Citadel enjoys their populist president.
we were ahead of the curb on that one.
But I say that to say, in case anybody ever thinks that we're being heavy-handed about a metaphor. No, we're thinking about politics in general. We thought Hillary Clinton was going to be president when we wrote this. We didn't care.
And we were
it was a commentary on politics.
Yeah.
We don't care how you vote. Just watch our show and buy the slippers.
We thought we were in the sci-fi prediction
we have
game,
slippers
not the
now?
sci-fi current
Yeah, I
day
guess.
game.
Oh, can I plug something?
Yeah, go ahead.
My movie Lovesick Fool, Love in the Age of Like is on Amazon Prime.
And if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. But if not, subscribe and get it.
I certainly hope Amazon.
I love these two.
Oh, this is great. This the mermaid puss.
Yeah, what happened there that you changed
Do we have
the
to
writing
bleep?
on that?
Hey, still not curious?
We do
about
now.
what happened
Wait.
at that crazy Citadel place?
Not at all, Morty. That place will never have.
Did he say mermaid?
Now we're just watching the episode.
Yeah, we didn't have to bleep it.
I love that mermaid puss.
Because it's a mermaid.
Yeah, Rick, mermaid pussy, mermaid vagina.
Fish don't have. I mean, I actually.
Whoa,
don't know. Bye.
careful. Bye.
Bye. Oh, they let you say that.